Hello, hello. Welcome back to part two. If you made it through part one and you're joining us back here for part two, thank you very much. We're very pleased that you're back with us for part two. And if you didn't catch part one, you can go back and watch part one another time. This is part two of commemorating Donna Shear's 30 years in advocacy. And the anniversary date was actually yesterday. And we had a documentary, Voices for the Voiceless Advocacy Documentary. And that was coinciding with this anniversary that Donna's just having right now. So I think it's a big deal. And when I wanted to do a special show tonight, just in honor of Donna's work and all the incredible achievements that she's done, that, you know, it's not that people don't care. It's just the fact that, it's because we do all this not for profit, and we also are not attached to any federal funding. So we're not, Prevent Child Abuse America or anything like that. We're not getting paid the big bucks to do this. And so, I wanted to really make sort of a big deal about this because I think it's great. And I'm proud of you, Donna. I really am. And it's a big deal to me. So yeah, this show is very important to me. The documentary was very important to me. So if you're watching this and you haven't checked the description below, be sure and check the description because I've literally highlighted what's going on here, why we're doing this, and talked about the documentary. And there's a link to the documentary, so you could actually just click on the link if you want to go watch that documentary. And it was Donna Shear, Lee Cougardawn Roberts. That's our other bestie, who's not here with us on this show, but she does we do a lot of stuff together. And Michael Skinner, who's a musician, singer-songwriter, a drummer. He's a musician, and he writes the Surviving Spirit newsletter, sends that out to people who follow the newsletter every month. And he's a survivor himself, and he's a big-time advocate. He's spoken nationally and in other countries. He's literally spoken to, hundreds of thousands of people, raising awareness about protecting children, right? So, yeah, that documentary was very special to me. I'm glad that it was Donna's idea, and she allowed me kind of free reign to just go with it and
you did
make
incredible.
it happen.
You did absolutely incredible. You did. It was absolutely incredible. And I just want to say thank you so much for having me kind of like as your guest and celebrating me tonight. I love it. I think it's incredible. I never had no plans to really do it. And then when you suggested it, I was like, hey, okay, cool. So thank you for that. Documentary, you kicked ass on. That documentary is incredible. The way that you put everybody in order and you put everybody exactly the way they should have went. See, my biggest thing was I wasn't sure if I would have done it, if I would have did it that way. But then after I watched it, I was like, there's no other way those people could have been. I mean, you picked the perfect layout, the perfect thing, all the little extras. It's honest to God, it is absolutely incredible. The more I watched it, the more engrossed into it I got. It was funny because I started watching Lee, and I think I said a little bit earlier, and I was like, wow, like it pulled me in. And then I'm watching you, and I'm like, yeah. And I was getting like, with every person, Mike and then Lee, I was like getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And then it come to the clip with Aaron, and I was like, hell yeah, Aaron, you kick ass, buddy. I just think he's awesome.
That's so cool.
And then it was so funny. It got to me, and I was like, oh my God, mine is terrible compared to everybody else's. But I don't like my own voice. I always say my voice sounds terrible, but I talk to 22 to 25 kids every single day. So I always feel like I have a sore throat these days anyway. So I think my voice sounds terrible. So I was like, oh, I sound terrible.
No.
And then you ended it. And just the way you ended it, it was like, you always wonder if you do enough, or like if you could do more. And just the way you ended it, it really was touching. It was a beautiful presentation. I don't think anyone could have done it as well as you have. It's incredible. I'm
That's
honored
awesome.
that you
Thank you.
did
I
it.
appreciate that.
I'm honored that
I
you took
enjoyed doing
on
it.
that role.
Yeah, it was fun. I really enjoyed it. It was a nice project for me to do. And, I really did try really hard to do a good job on it.
You did
And that's what I
excellent.
said. We really did our best we could, like with the tools that we have and with just what we have. We really gave our all. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we have to be okay with our contribution because so many times as advocates, advocates quite often burn out.
Yeah.
There are articles out there about it because it is such intense work. And so many times advocates will burn out. They give their whole lives and their heart to something, and at the end of the road they feel like, well, they didn't make a difference, it didn't matter. And it does matter,
It does
and
matter.
you do the best you can, and at the end of the road you have to be okay with what you were able to do, because really that's all you could do. And I think as long as all of us are doing something to make this world a better place, it's bound to be a better place.
Yeah.
So yeah,
The
absolutely,
goal
I
has
enjoyed doing
always
it. It was
been to make the world a better place for kids. I think that was one
fun.
thing you, myself, Lee, and every other advocate that we had worked with in the last 20 years have really been. I mean, it's always been about the kids and protecting kids. And I know we have done things like Secret Santa, and we've done Easter baskets for kids in need. And I mean, we had all these
Mm-hmm.
different things that we did to really make a difference in the lives of children. And I think all of us over the last 20 years have done an incredible job. I mean, I sit back and I look at you and I think we're sitting here tonight and we're saying, oh, you had 30 years, but you had almost 20 yourself, and you're still out there
Mm-hmm.
talking. And I didn't realize, the other day until I actually seen the documentary. I kept thinking Lee's son and my son were closer in age. And then
Mm-hmm.
when she said the other day about, you know, she has been advocating for 41 years, I was like floored. I was thinking, holy man, like that's a long
I know
time.
that's a long time.
I'm sitting
It
here
is.
saying, this is a hell of a long time for me, but like, there she is,
Mm-hmm.
41 years, and you have almost 20
Yeah.
years. And Michael Skinner, he's had, I mean, we're looking at 120 years with all the years that we've all
Yeah.
dedicated to advocating for the rights of children. So
That's right.
that's a huge
Yeah.
win.
It is.
That's a
It
huge win.
absolutely
Plus all the
is.
people on our
Yeah.
teams. Look at all the
Yeah.
people we have for AU4H, and look at all the
Yeah.
people that they have their own causes, but we still partner and we do incredible things for kids. I mean, we have
Right.
some incredible friends that are advocates.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone that we're connected to is a powerhouse in their own right.
Oh yeah.
The missing, and the
Definitely.
bullying and mental health awareness. And I mean, we connect with so many great people. And I mean, we look at these people and it's like we've known them so long, and it's like it's
I
nice to
know.
know that there's good people out there. And I think a lot of time we focus on the ugly or the negative people
Mm-hmm.
or people that's harming children, but there's a lot of good people out there. A lot of good people.
There are. Yes, there are. And that's the thing, right? I mean, and quite often, I mean, it goes unnoticed because the focus is on the children, the focus
Mm-hmm.
is on making changes, to protect them, protect their lives, to save them from abuse or whatever. And the issue is like, nobody's thinking about all the advocates that are working behind the scenes,
No.
and working so hard, to get these things done. And there's been a lot before us. There was a bunch before us that started this, and then and hopefully, our hope with this documentary, Voices for the Voiceless advocacy documentary, was that younger advocates who are just coming, up and coming,
Mm-hmm.
will hopefully see this, and they'll be able to get a bird's eye view into some older advocates who have really put the time in and done a lot of the bulk of this, laying the groundwork, and that they will see that, and they'll be like, oh, we have to continue this on. We have to pick up where they left off, and we have to. I'm hoping they can do a better job. I really am. Like, I'm hoping. I always hope that, because it's not like, I mean, I'm like, that's the thing. there can always be more done. And it's like, I'm hoping that these new advocates, these younger advocates who are up and coming, will just take it and run and go for it and get a lot done, because these children can't wait till tomorrow. Unfortunately, that's the issue. They're we can't save them all. No. There's going to be a bunch that aren't going to make it because there's not enough being done just right now. But with every advocate's voice who adds their voice to this, and then action behind the voice, like Donna, which getting the laws changed and really being out there, talking to, state representatives, governors, all the lawmakers, to get things done to save children's lives. I mean, and we're talking about, to save them from abuse, and it's like, we need more people in on this, right? So
we do.
It's amazing, like we were talking in the part one, anybody who's just tuning in now, part one, we were mentioning a lot of the people that we used to work with, not so much by name, but some of them. But we worked with a phenomenal bunch of people.
Yes.
Absolutely phenomenal. Like, they were great mentors for me, and I look up to them. I really do. These people had been in it before us. There were several, lots of them that have passed away already, who were a few years older than us, and they're already gone. They're gone on,
Yeah. We've lost a lot of grief.
Man, I'm telling you, that's it. And they were powerful, powerful advocates. And they were my mentors, and I was like always really appreciative of what they were doing and how hard they were working, and this is the thing, right? We had our time to shine. And in many ways, that's what I said, like even 2 years ago, I had basically put a post out and a video clip that I was basically done, I said all I could say. That's what I said. I was like, I think I've said all I could say. I mean, I've said it around over and over again. It's time for somebody else to pick this up and run with it, somebody younger, somebody who's got more energy and can actually do this. I mean, I'm going to be 60 this year, Lord willing, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I'd like to sit back and relax now a little bit, I mean? Do some things I'm interested in. So, yeah. But in the meantime, now we can't really say we're really done, because once this law passes, we're going to be busy for a while promoting it, and also
teaching people,
sharing really the education piece to it. Yeah. So, but hopefully we have a whole bunch of young people in on this that can help us do this, right? Yeah.
It's going to be important to show people how to use it to make it an asset, basically make it a great tool in the toolbox. I think it's something that people can use in every aspect of life, whether it's a coach, it's a babysitter, it's someone you're going to get involved with. So many people are so trustworthy. Laurie, this is going to sound funny when I say it, but listen to what I'm going to say. Have you ever known somebody and they'll say, "Can I borrow your car?" And this person will be like, "No, I don't let anybody borrow my car." But yet they'll let anybody watch their kid. Like they're more worried about who's driving their car than who they are. That's, like babysitting their child. And it's like, I think that this is going to be huge. I think it's really going to teach a lot of people. I want people to be the first time that they get involved with somebody, or like I said, their kid's going to be on a team for a coach or even a teacher. Get on there and look it up and be like, okay, and it's not like a lot of people's like, oh, that's because you want to go after these people or you want to get even with them. No, it's not. The reason I want this to be done is because I want people to be able to protect their children. I would never get on there and try to create a problem for anybody. I would never want to intentionally, like ruin someone's name or reputation. That's not what this is about. This is about the fact of, because we see so many people, especially nowadays, getting into relationships, and they get into relationships quickly. Within a few weeks to a month, somebody's living in their home, whether it be a man or a woman. How do you know that you can fully trust somebody? Because so many people before us have trusted, and their kids have been abused and and killed and neglected. And no, so I want this to be like an incredible tool in the toolbox. I want people to be like, hey, my kid's going to first grade. I'm going to look up who their teacher is going to be. Hey, my kid's playing basketball. I'm going to look up who their coach is. Hey, I'm just newly out of a divorce and I'm going to start dating. I want to make sure that this guy's cool to be around my kids. I think that would be a great asset to a lot of people if that would be their first go-to. And there's no reason for it not to be. I mean, there's so many people out there, and I'm not saying again that people's not good people, but there's a lot of bad people out there. There's a lot of, I'll tell you something. The other day I was coming up through, it's a community. It's probably 3 times the size of the community I live in. And I pulled up to the stop sign, and as I did, I heard 2 gunshots. I was like, what the hell? I went right through that freaking stop sign. And I thought, now everybody has those little cameras, you know, like at the top of the red lights and stuff. I thought, if I get a ticket in the mail, I'm going to be like, look, I heard 2 gunshots. Like, that shit doesn't happen where I live. Like, it's scary. And we live in a time, in a world where we don't know people and we can't trust people. Someone asked me, can you ever fully trust somebody? The answer is no. No, you cannot fully trust somebody, because sometimes the people closest to us are the biggest abusers. It doesn't matter. You know, they can be, and they are. So when people say, can you fully trust somebody? No, I don't believe you can fully trust somebody, especially when it comes to your child. If not, we wouldn't have so many. Yeah, but we wouldn't have so many ministers or pastors or, you know, coverings, sexually assaulting children, teachers, like I said, coaches. That wouldn't happen. And let's be honest, how many people do we know, or that we've advocated with, I'll say it like that was sexually assaulted because they spent the night at somebody's house at a sleepover, or their child was sexually assaulted at a sleepover, a daycare. You send your kid to daycare, and you think you can trust the people that your children are around. A lot of things do not show up in a background check. I have been preaching and preaching and preaching.
No, that's right.
and people don't want to hear it. On the Pennsylvania State Police, when you get on there and you look up to see if somebody has a record or they've ever been charged, if you don't put their aliases on there, it's not going to come up. I was working with a group.
It's crazy.
And I was working with a group, and they all come in and they gave me their clearances. And I looked at this one woman's and I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't right. And she's like, yes, it is. And I'm like, no, you didn't put your maiden name on there. Oh, well, I'm not going to put my maiden name on there. Wait a minute. You got to put your maiden name on there. It says any aliases, because you have to. And, you know, no, I'm not going to put my maiden name on there. And I'm like, no way. Give me the thing. So I did it myself. Here, when you put in her married name, she didn't have a record. But when you put on that form her maiden name, guess what? She had a record. It didn't show up. Or the unified justice system. Everybody's like, oh, you can just pop on there and see if somebody committed a crime. Well, you got to know what county it was in. And it doesn't always show up. If you have more than one counties that somebody's been convicted in, it doesn't always show up. And let's be honest, people make mistakes and computers make mistakes. So it's not that when you're doing a background check or whatever, that a mistake cannot happen, because it can. So the best thing that we can do with having a public child abuse registry is you don't have to wait for weeks for something to come back. Like right now, the way it is in Pennsylvania is when you do your clearances, you get online, you do your clearances, and then you have to wait. You get a reference number and you have to wait. Or you'll get a letter in the mail or an email, however you choose to do it. Then it'll come back and say if this person, usually a couple weeks later, if this person has committed a violent crime or killed a child, it'll say if they have a record or not. It's going to delete all that. We're not going to have to do that anymore, because just like Megan's Law, we can punch the person's name in and see if that person's been convicted. You know, first, it's going to be right there at your fingertips. There's not going to be any waiting required. Second of all, it's going to cover everything. And I think that it's important that people know these people's names. I think it's important that they know birthmarks and tattoos and scars. I think it's important for people to know, what the crime was and why this person has been convicted. I always go back to Ron Sanders, and a lot of people, they're like, you always pick on Ron. No, I'm not picking on Ron. Ron had a violent past dating back to the military. He got out of the military, and dishonorably, of course, and this is the information that was provided to me, so I'm only sharing the information that had been provided to me. He gets out, and he had been in and out of trouble multiple times. Okay. He meets Mashana. He gets with Mashana, and, she trusts him. She had no reason to think that he had a violent past. Why would she? He just seems like he's a nice guy, and he's going to church with them, and they're doing all these fun family things, and he seems like the perfect gentleman, the perfect guy, the perfect guy that's going to be a great stepdad. And
that's how it always starts out.
Yeah, and she had no clue that he was going to be the person that killed her son. And
that's sad. Yeah.
He spent 5.5 years in jail. He gets out of jail within a month. I always say a month to 6 weeks because it's like right in between. There he is. He is arrested for abusing yet another child. And the same thing with the second mother, April Brandt. April had no idea that he had a violent past. Mashana had no idea he had a violent past. And it just made me really think, like, the only way to protect children is if we can look at somebody's past. And if they have a violent past that they've been convicted of, it's not like we're going to take people's names and be like, oh, Jimmy got turned in last week by children and youth because somebody didn't like him or somebody filed a false report. These are people convicted of a crime. Convicted.
That's right. That's right.
So
found guilty and convicted in the court of law. Yeah.
Yes. So if Mashana would have had this information, Connor would be alive. If April Brandt had this information, that little girl would not be scarred for life. So the key is, if you can look to see that somebody's committed a violent crime against a child, we can protect our children. And I think that it's going to be great for coaches, teachers, youth leaders, organizations, charities that you put your child in. So many people sign their kid up and they're like, go. I'm not that person. I'm going to tell you what, I'm probably going to check you out better than the FBI because I'm not going to trust you with my child or my grandchild or my niece and nephew.
Yeah.
I'm just not. Right. And a lot of people don't. A lot of people's like, oh, they're a coach, they must have clearances. Well, a lot of teams don't make you get clearances. A lot of organizations don't make you get clearances. And again, look how many pastors and reverends and
that too.
You look at people of the cloth and you think, oh my Lord, like they're good people. They would never harm a child. And sometimes they're the biggest abusers. So you can't trust anyone. And a lot of people's like, just slap this new bill on with Megan's Law. It can't be on with Megan's Law because Megan's is for sexual abuse. This is going to be for physical abuse, neglect, or fatal child abuse. So
that's right.
Laurie, I'm telling you, this is going to make a difference. Once we teach people how to use it, it's going to make a difference and it's going to save lives. I know it's going to save lives.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because I mean, the amount of people that reoffend is just absolutely crazy. We've been following those reports for years and years and years, looking at the issues of people who, men, women, both, it's not just only men, men or women who kill their children or somebody else's child, do some time, 5 years, 7 years, whatever, get off for good behavior, come back out and do it again. They have no intentions of stopping their horrible, really, really, really disgusting behavior of attacking and killing children or abusing children or whatever. That's what they do, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, this sort of thing, this that's where this registry and Megan's Law and this one coming up here, that Donna presented and is being worked on and it's being passed. because it will pass. That's what Aaron was saying. It's definitely going to pass. It's like it'll definitely help in that regard to reoffending people who continue to hurt children, harm and hurt children, kill children, whatever, after they do their sentences, and they don't care. They don't care if they end up back in prison again for another stint. And this is the sad part, right? So it won't catch the first timers who don't have a criminal background. So you still have to watch, you know what I mean? Like there's lots of people who, for the first time, who don't have a criminal background will abuse a child, and but at that point they'll be put on that registry, and then in Pennsylvania to start out, but hopefully it'll go nationwide. It needs to be nationwide. That's what Aaron was saying. He's like, this really does need to be nationwide. So hopefully eventually, right? But somebody's got to care about the children. Somebody does, and sadly enough, so many people don't, and that's sad, man. It just breaks my heart. I think, but there's a lot of people that do, and thank God for them. You know what I mean? So that's where it is. We sometimes it does seem a little depressing, and we sit there and we think, nothing's going to change. I've heard this from people. People, would say to me, because or you, like, we're advocates, so they know what we do, and they say stuff like, it's never going to change. Like, don't you know that there's always going to be child abuse? Why are you even wasting your time? And it's like, if you're trying to save children's lives, that's not a waste of time. No. It's not. It's the best. It's the best thing I could think of doing for that period of time of my life. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I wouldn't change it either. I wouldn't go back and do anything differently. I mean, we worked hard and we put in a lot of time and hours. And, I mean, man, talk about burning the candle at both ends. Like
sometimes I think people have a misconception about advocates, because I get a lot of people that will say to me, well, you got the information, do something about it, change it. And they don't understand, like, it just doesn't happen overnight. And you do have to have support. And even just like, we took this bill to Aaron, and we're like, this is our proposal. This is what we want to do. Yeah, he can say that it's a great idea, but it has to go on to the House, and then that's going to determine what we do. And then you have the Senate, and again, that determines, like, if I could change the laws today myself, trust me, I would be out there writing a new bill every day of the week. But it doesn't work like that. And I think a lot of times they don't understand the time and the energy that really goes into it. When we say about how much time we did researching for this bill, or how many phone calls I made, or how many trips I've made, people don't really believe it. And I have a lot of people that are saying, okay, I'm checking out your podcast, and it's the Daily with Donna, but every time I get on, I would always say, welcome back to the road to the registry. And they always call it the registry podcast. But, a lot of people get on there and they're like, I didn't realize you traveled like that. I didn't realize that you sat down with all those different people or all those different groups and organizations. A lot of people just was like, oh, all she did was say, this is what she wants to do, and they're doing it. And it's like, no, you have no idea. I probably spent 2 or 3 years researching and grabbing like data, and then I started local. I mean, it was not like an immediate thing, but after meeting Aaron, it was like, okay, now I know I don't have to go through all this BS, but I still like to research. That's one of the big things. I really like to know the statistics, and I want to know the law. And, there's laws on the books that need strengthened. So if we can do anything to make those laws stronger, you have to research them to know what you're doing or what you're talking about. A lot of people had said after we did the initial interview with Aaron, you were so knowledgeable about the registry. If you spent as much time educating yourself on it as I did, you would probably you would answer the questions too.
That's right. That's right.
It takes a long time to really get to know like what it is, and just like right now, I have a copy of the bill. I printed out from online, and I've been reading through it. And I always go through like a yellow or an orange highlighter so I know where I stopped. That thing is 51 pages long. Like, I never envisioned this thing being 51 pages long, but
it was even longer than when you presented it.
Yeah, and it's funny because a lot of people, they just think, oh, all she has to do is write it down, or she just has to tell them what she wants. It's like, no, there's a lot of time and there's a lot of research. There's a lot of people you have to talk to and shake hands. And because my biggest thing was, yes, I had the research. Yes, I was meeting, but I wanted to get the public support. That was one of the biggest things that was important to me, was meeting with these people, getting their support, having them understand what I wanted to do. Once they really saw what we wanted to do, then they were like, oh, okay, yes, we like this. But a lot of people look at me and they're like, well, what's the big deal? Why do you want this registry public? And it's like, do you realize that this is going to be a tool for you to protect your children? A lot of people didn't understand. They were like, whatever, what's it going to do? And it's like, this thing is going to be incredible. Like, and like, I'm excited about it and I'm trying to explain it. And they're just like, I'm not understanding what you're doing. And I'm like, this is going to be like an incredible tool. You know, you're going to be able to protect your children. And they're like, well, how am I going to protect my children with some stupid thing you get on online? And it's like, because you can look up to see if someone you're getting involved with has ever, you know, committed a violent crime against a child. Yeah, you know, and being convicted was the big thing. And that was one of Stephanie Borowitz's biggest thing. When I went to her the first time, she didn't understand completely that they had to be convicted. And then when I went back and sat down with her the second time, and she suggested we sit down with Chris Dush, she's like, oh, so they have to be convicted. And I'm like, yes. And she said, I totally didn't understand all that. She's like, but I'll tell you, when you go in and you meet with them, you're trying to get so much information to them so quickly because you only have a small circle of time. Do you remember the day
you got a little small window?
And he's like, I'm already so many minutes over into my next appointment. And I'm like, it's okay, because you're with us. They have commitments and they have so many people every day that wants to meet with them or sit down with them, or they too have an idea. So
they have a schedule. Exactly. They're on a calendar. You know,
and time is limited, so it's like
you got a little window of time and you got to make it happen.
So you have to share as much information as you can, and there's a lot of times like things get overlooked. But one thing I did was I always took a copy of what I wanted to do, and then I had a copy of my presentation, and I would always present them both, and I would say, when I leave, you have a chance to take a peek at it, tell me what you think, ask me any questions, call me, email me, text me. I don't know how many hundreds of them that I had passed out, and very few ever called me back or even emailed me back, or most of them was like, not this year, maybe on an election year, and it was like, well, why do you want to use this just on an election year? Like, that doesn't even seem fair.
It's sad.
You know? And it was like,
makes me shake my head because I'm like, why don't they care? They don't care. There's Aaron, picking it up and going, hey, this is great. You know what I mean? I thought this was already done. You know what I mean?
I'll tell you what, he is a force to be reckoned with. He is not going to. He was so, he was so into Markey's Law and making sure that this child's, was not just this child, but this child's name was to carry on and protect other children. And he was about protecting children and getting the job done. And, a lot of people, they don't get it. And then Governor Wolf, he vetoed it, which was a disgrace. I mean, that was disgusting on all levels. But a lot of them don't take it serious. They just really don't, they don't see it as other people do. And when he was on there and he was talking to us and he was sharing so much stuff, it was like you could just see how much he cared about kids. You could hear in his voice how dedicated he was to protecting children in the future. And I don't know, I respected that about him. And I think he's an incredible person. And
yeah, absolutely.
He's going to kick ass. I mean, there's no other way to say it. He's going to kick ass.
That's right. That's right. Well, and we, you know, it all really boils down to how a society, you know, any society feels about children. And I mean, you know, it's only been recently where, you know, there were laws put in place where you couldn't just kill your children. You know what I mean? I mean, back in the old days, you could kill your children, no problem. It's just no big deal. You know, going back to Roman times, that was a practice that they did quite often. If they didn't want a child, they would just put it out in the dump, and it would just die because,
oh my God,
you know, a little baby can't survive on their own out in the dump. You know what I mean? So that's just what they did, and all the way up until the 1800s, you know, children were just, you know, it's not that everybody mistreated children. It's the fact that the people that did were allowed to do it. And so, you know, there were so many children that were just so neglected, abused, you know, in every way. And especially children who were like orphans and stuff like that really had no chance, no hope really of escaping abuse. You know, that would be their daily life. So, you know, there's recently, I mean, that's as recent, I mean, as like in late 1800s when I do talk about this quite a bit because I find it fascinating. When Charles Dickens was writing a column and started writing Oliver Twist. And he wanted people to start to see what was going on with children, and he wanted people to start changing the way they felt about children. Because in that society, that's just how everybody was like. Everybody accepted the fact that, you know, children, you know, really didn't have any rights, and people could do whatever they wanted to them, including kill them, no problem. You know what I mean? And he was like, "This is wrong," you know. And he started writing a weekly or whatever, some sort of a weekly column or something. I'm not sure if it was weekly or monthly or whatever. But people were reading these stories for Oliver, the beginning, really part of Oliver Twist, and they were like starting to see that that was incredibly wrong, and that children should be protected and they should be treated better. And that's late 1800s, folks. That's my grandparents were born in the late 1800s. My parents were born in the late 20s. So, you know, that's my grandparents' era. And my grandparents brought my parents up exactly like that. They were abusive to their children, physically abusive, you know, psychologically, verbally abusive. And then, like, both of my parents were abused. And so, and what my grandmother, I mean, she was not arrested. She was not, there was no court case or anything like that. But she was responsible for the death of my uncle, her son, because she beat him up and put him in a barn. And yeah, she like horsewhipped him or something, and then made him sleep in the barn in the winter. And he got pneumonia and he died, and there was nothing done about it. So she just I guess they buried him out in the backyard, you know, I mean, like whatever. So that's you know, ridiculous, but seriously, would have been probably in the 30s, 1930s when that happened. So probably mid 30s, you know. Yeah, no, I mean, this is just it. Even in the early 1900s, children were treated horribly, and especially children who were institutionalized for, you know, whatever reason, orphanages or whatever. And so it hasn't been all that long. Even in my generation, 1960, the courts just looked the other way. I mean, they told my mom, they said, you know, you really should get out of this marriage. You know, your husband's mistreating you, he's mistreating the children. The children said, hey, it's our mom too, mistreating us. And so the courts were like, you guys need counseling, you need help. But they didn't remove us. It was no big deal. Hey, whatever, you know what I mean? Go ahead and beat your children half to death. Doesn't really matter. And it's like, so my parents grew up with that mindset that that's how you treat children, because that's how they were treated. And then, you know, I'm growing up in the 60s. You know, my parents, I'm a late baby, you know, not really wanted. You know what I mean? I came in late and they didn't really want me. They were like, oh, God, we got another kid here. And my thinking is totally different because I'm coming in the 60s, and I'm, especially once I started going to school, learning a lot more different values. And in the 60s, they were starting to embrace the whole, that they should protect, there should be some protection for children. You know what I mean? That children do matter, they do count. My parents were like, children don't count. My mom used to say stuff to me like, I could have just killed you. I should just kill you right now. And I'd be like, well, you'd go to jail. My mom would be like, no, I wouldn't. I have the right to kill you if I want to. I can do whatever I want. That was her attitude. I'm like, well, you'd do prison time if you kill me. That's for sure. But she was thinking like that old school way of how they were brought up. Yeah. And it hasn't been all that many generations. That's what I'm saying. So we really need education, and we really need people to fight for the rights of the child. Children's rights are there. They're in place. Children do have rights. They have the right to not be abused. They have the right to life. They have the right to a good life. They have a right to a loving home. They have a right to get their needs met. They have a right to worship any God that they want to. They have a right to education to a certain point. They have a right to health care. There's so many rights that children have. They have a right to not be abused in any way, shape, or form.
Exactly.
Physical abuse, emotional, psychological, sexual abuse, you name it, neglect. They have a right to be free from that. And yet, what do we see going on? It's because the courts aren't upholding those laws. The courts aren't upholding that. Somebody goes before the judge. They just finished raping and murdering some little child that they got a hold of, whether it was their own or somebody else's. And the judge is just like, well, whatever. Slaps them with some stupid little sentence, and the mindset of people needs to change. And that's what I think as a group, all the people that we were working with, including ourselves, were really trying to point out is the fact that the way people feel about children needs to change.
Yeah.
And we really got to push for the for children's rights to be upheld. It's the same with human rights. If you don't push for human rights, they will be taken away.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. And it's like, we won those human rights. We won them by people's hard work. And those children's rights were won by hard work. People went and lobbied the courts and said, children have rights. We've got to have an international body that says this is the rights of the child, right? And it's so important to uphold those rights because right now they're not being upheld at all. I mean, there's a few people like Aaron Bernstein who's willing to. It is. It's incredibly sad. And I think it just shows you how sick and twisted our world is becoming. Like for a little bit there was this glimmer of hope that things were going to get better because there's all of a sudden this talk of human rights and child rights and it was stuff put in place to try to protect them, even though it's not perfect. They know themselves, those people, those social workers that work at those places know that it's not perfect, but a lot of them, if probably not most of them, go in every day hoping and praying they can make a difference and save a child from dying or from abuse. And the thing is there's so many that slip through the crack. They know that. Those people aren't dumb. They know that there's so many that will slip through the cracks. It's not a perfect system. No, it's not going to be a perfect system. But the thing is if everybody just all of a sudden just says, oh, well, it doesn't matter, then all of that hard work is it's just for nothing. You know what I mean? Like that's why we were so big on spreading the information, spreading the education, getting the word out to as many people as possible. Once we had the internet to work with, kind of like, hey, right on, this is a great tool we can use. And, somebody's got to stand up. Somebody's got to stand up for these children. And we did, and it's like, somebody's got to make some noise. And we did, just like Charles Dickens did way back in the England in the late 1800s. He started making some noise. And people were listening, and there was many people after him that did a lot of great work. I can't think of their names, but I mean, there's a bunch of really famous people that did a lot of great work with child rights. And it's like, you know, we've got to keep on working hard to spread that information. You know, absolutely. Because people think they have the right to do these things to a child. Like, who in their right mind thinks that it's okay to hurt and harm a child? We're not talking about discipline, okay? We're not talking about a little spank on the butt or whatever. That's always a topic for debate. You can kill a child by spanking them. So we're talking not hurting a child, because if you hurt the child, that's abuse. If you literally harm and hurt that child, it's abuse. We're not talking about discipline, because, you know, children without discipline are a real problem, because guess who's going to discipline them in the future? Donna and I were talking about that last night. We were like, if you don't discipline your children, guess who's going to? The police.
Yeah.
The prisons.
Yeah.
You need to discipline children.
There's people that don't think so. There's people that have argued and said, like, because when we first come out, we ran into the fact that a lot of people thought when we were saying you can't abuse your child, that we meant, you know, no, you can't discipline your child, or, you know, like spank your child or tap them on the fingers. And I'm like, no, it's not the same thing. I'm talking you can't punch, kick, and, you know, like throat punch your child. This is what I'm talking about. But I'm not saying
you can't beat the shit out of your kid till, you know, you can't assault your children and beat them down to a pulp, you know what I mean, and break their bones
but your child
damage their organs, and you just can't do that.
Your child does need discipline. Like, your child has to know right from wrong, and they have to know that, you know, there's just some things that they cannot do. And I know myself with my own kids, there was things like they could do. I had rules, and, you know, there were certain things you couldn't do. The other night, you and I was talking about my son when he was 16. And I said he was dating a girl, and his curfew was 11 o'clock. And I would always say, be home by 11. Well, he would leave her house at 11 and get home like 5 after 11. And I'd be like, late. And he'd say, no, I'm not. And I'd say, you're late. And he'd say, no, I'm not. Yep. And I'd say, curfew's 11. Well, after he lost the car for a week, he learned real quick to leave at 5 minutes of 11 to be home by 11. And a lot of people's like, you could have let that slide. Well, let me tell you what, it would have been 5 minutes if I let it slide. Then it would have went to 10 minutes. Then it would have went to 15 minutes. And then it would have been a half hour, then an hour. No, there's rules, because we have to follow rules so that we can all get along in society. And no, I don't want my kid growing up to be a criminal. No, I don't want my kid growing up to be in prison. So if it's even just a little rule, I mean, I had rules where, you know, hey, you couldn't leave the yard because it was for safety purposes. Not that I'm just this horrible person where you can't leave the yard. No, there's rules, and you have to follow rules. And that, yes, and even as much as saying to a kid, you got to clean your room, or hey, you got to take the dog out. Like, they're not hard things to say to your child. It teaches your children responsibility. So you do have to teach your children accountability, responsibility, and they have to know that there is discipline. If you break the rules, there's going to be consequences. And a lot of people, you don't think that. And to me, you have to teach your kids. I'm not saying don't ever punish your kid. I'm just saying don't beat the hell out of your kid and think that is punishment or you're teaching them something. No, that is abuse. That's is violence. There's a difference.
And that doesn't teach them anything. No. Beating on a kid doesn't teach them anything.
No,
because basically they end up just hating you as a parent.
Well,
you know,
they fear you. You know, they fear you. They hate you, and then a lot of times they grow up to abuse their own children. So why would we want to continue the cycle of abuse?
Yeah, and it's just wrong. It's just not okay to do that to your children.
No.
It's like, we're not talking about discipline. We're talking about straight out.
But when we first started, there was a lot of people that thought that's what we meant. They thought it meant like you can't spank your child, or you can't have your child have a timeout. And it's like,
listen, you can't say no to your child.
That was my punishment when my kids were little. I would always say, okay, time out. Even in my classroom today, if the kids don't listen, I'll give them a warning. And then the next time I'm like, okay, 5-minute timeout. Let me tell you what, no kid wants that timeout. So they're going to listen. They're not going to run when they're not supposed to. It's funny because we have Maureen and we have Barb. And a lot of times they'll say the kids don't run. Well, the floor is concrete where we are. So you have a concrete floor and you have kids. Well, if I let 22 to 25 kids every day run,
you're going to have a problem.
We're going to have a big problem because if one of them falls, they're going to get hurt. And
that's it.
You know, it's like, so, and then they're like, you're being mean because you're making me take a time out. No, I gave you a warning. We don't run in here. And now you're going to, and then they'll say, I'm going to tell my mom. Well, that's good because I'll be sending a note home with you today to tell your mom. You know, it's like,
that's right.
But you have to have rules and, you know, kids have to follow example and they, you know, you got to lead your children by example. But there's a difference between disciplining your child and abusing your child.
That's right. That's right. I mean, to be honest with you, I was disciplined a few times that I remember back thinking about it. That was totally disciplined and I totally needed it. I needed some correction. But the thing is it's not the same as abuse. It's just not.
We all do. I can remember being a kid and my mom saying, don't do something. It would be like, I'm doing it anyway. And then she'd be like, well, you know, now you're, and our biggest thing when we were kids too was you had to sit. My one brother, he sat constantly because he never wanted to follow the rules.
Just couldn't help himself.
My mom would be like, don't do that. You know you can't do that. If you do it again, you're going to set. And okay, I'll never do it again. 5 minutes later, he'd do it again. She'd be like, okay, get in the chair. I think he spent more time in that chair than he did anything else because he didn't want to listen.
Yeah.
But then he grew
up. That's
the
thing, right?
But he grew up and he had a child and he made sure that that child listened and that child followed rules and he held that child accountable. So there's a difference between holding your children accountable and abusing them. There's a difference between discipline and abuse. But we do hold our children accountable in this world because if we don't, imagine what our children are going to grow up to be like. Yeah,
exactly. It's not a good thing. You know, there is a time for discipline, and it's like that's not abuse. You know, if you're not hurting and harming the child to the point where you're seriously leaving bruises and scarring them and, you know, beating the shit out of them, you know, that's just not good. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, that's abuse. We're talking, you know, if people have their own ideas of what discipline means. I mean, every parent does. That's fine, but that's not abuse. We're talking, you know, abuse is totally different. And, you know, it's just a shame that people feel that because, you know, I mean, I'm just thinking about parents with their own children, but then there's all these other insane, I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it because I can't stand them. Predators, child sexual predators out there who just think for whatever reason that every child just out there just is for their pleasure. You know what I mean? And, you know, the damage done, you can never, ever, you can never fully recover from that. You know what I mean? You just can't. And it's like, you know, it's not okay. You can't take it back. And those people, those monsters, I call them monsters because that's what they are. These people who go out there and sexually assault children. It's like, you know, like we said before, like you were talking about, Donna, where they usually have many, many, many victims, usually up to 100. They said normally about 100 before they ever get caught, you know. And so they do a lot of damage. They go in, they get jail time, you know, they get prison time. They come out, they have no intentions on changing. And now now there's all these studies being done and government funded studies saying that, oh, it's a disease of the brain. They can't help themselves. Bullshit my ass. Exactly. They can help themselves and they don't have to go out it makes me sick the way that people feel about children. It's kind of
Mhm.
like, you even get people siding with the actual perpetrators of these crimes. People that would
Mhm.
side
Mhm.
with, for instance, there would be people that would side with that guy that in part one, we were talking about this little boy who years and years ago, we covered his story,
Mhm.
talking about it a lot on different radio shows that we were doing. Because all he did was take a bun off of he was hungry, he took a bun off of the stove, and his dad spent the next 3 days abusing him so badly, tied up to a chair, that he died 3 days later, this little boy.
Mhm.
And we were heartbroken. It was such a horrible story because the mother did nothing to protect him and
No.
cried the blues about it, saying she was worried for her own life. She didn't go get help. She just let him kill her little boy. And my heart was broken because there are people that think that's perfectly fine. That's
Yeah.
what you do to children when they misbehave. And it's like, that was my mom's idea of what you do to a child when they misbehave. You know,
Yeah.
that was her idea, is like, you just really give it to them. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's so incredibly wrong. It's not funny. Like, you don't do that to a child. You don't.
No.
And anybody who thinks that that's okay, I'm sorry, that's just wrong. And so
Yeah.
the society, so we really do need for people up and coming advocates who are out there. You know, you've got to get the way that people feel about children changed in society. We really need more protection for them, not
We
less.
do.
We need
We do.
more. We need more stiffer
We do.
penalties for. We need punishments that fit the crime. Because right
Mhm.
now the punishment does
They
not fit the
don't.
crime. I mean,
No.
no, it's only somewhere you're at, what state you're at, like you were saying, Donna.
Mhm.
One
Yeah.
state
Each state.
over one county, it's all
Mhm.
different, right?
Yeah.
Depends on
Yeah.
where you're at. Some people,
Laurie.
some places you get the death penalty, right?
Laurie, could we take a 5-minute break? I need a tissue.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you bet.
I need a
Um,
tissue. I got a cold and I've been sneezing and
oh yeah.
I'd feel more comfortable if I could grab a tissue. Just give me 5
You
minutes,
go ahead.
please.
I'll just keep talking. You bet. You bet.
Okay. Just give me 5 minutes.
I'll just take you out. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, that's the issue. Like, we really need, um, the we need to change the way that people feel about children, because right now, I mean, it's hanging in the balance. It really is. Like I was talking earlier about people who are lobbying. Each year, there's a group that lobbies in the United States. There's a group that lobbies the government because they want to have sex with children. So they want the government to pass a law that they can have sex with children freely, no problem. And it's only a matter of time before some perverted, you know, lawmakers vote on that. Yes, you know what I mean. Do you think that's okay? I don't. I know there's a lot of people that do, but I'm going to stand up and say no, it's not. I'm not afraid to stand up and say no, it's not. These people don't scare me. You know what I mean? Like, I lived with two of the biggest monsters on the planet, my parents. You know what I mean? I'm not what are you going to do to me? It hasn't already been done. I don't care. You know what I mean? I think it's incredibly wrong, and we need to speak out against what's wrong. We really do. These children don't stand a chance if we don't speak out on their behalf. If we don't stand up and do what we can. Main thing is, if you're a parent, look out for your children. Don't abuse them. Bring them up properly. You know, and do the best you can. We're not talking about socioeconomic stuff. We're not talking about that. Talking, you do the best you can with what you have to bring up your children, right? And you know, do what you can. Make sure the children in their little friends and playmates, make sure they're not being abused. You can learn the signs and symptoms. You can learn how to spot abuse. And you can just make sure the children in your life are not being abused. And if everybody would do that, that'd be great. You know what I mean? So if you're listening, and you have children, do all you can to protect them. It's really it's so important, because all you have to do is start looking at some headlines. Sadly enough, just look at the headlines. That's what most people don't want to do, because they don't want to see it. It's so disturbing. And they're on their lunch break, or maybe they're waking up in the morning. Who wants to look at that first thing in the morning? Like nobody. It's depressing. I mean, seriously, it for most people would ruin their day. I mean, I grew up abused, so I just had to put up with it. This is like the way it is. But the thing is there's a lot of people out there who were treated very well as children. They grew up in loving homes, and that's all they know, and they don't want to look at this crazy, horrible stuff that's going out there. They can't even begin to think that a parent could do these things to their children, or that somebody else a stranger would do things like this to their children. But it's happening. It's happening, folks. And you don't want it to be your child. I tell you that. You do not. So if you have children, you've got to do what you can to protect them. You got to watch out everyone who's around your child, because everyone who's around your child has the potential to be an abuser. So it's just so important, And I think Donna's ready to come back. I think she's ready. We'll bring her back here.
I'm sorry.
Hello. Oh, don't worry about it. No worries. I just kept talking about how important it is for people to look out for their own children and look out for the children around them. I said, because if everybody would do that, the world would be a better place. But we've just got to get everybody to actually do that,
It's hard to get people involved.
Yeah, it is. I was just saying, that's what I was just saying. I was like, the headlines, the headlines are proof that this stuff is going on, and it's more than you think, because every headline that is out there, every newspaper article that you see with online news or whatever, you're scrolling, you see something, some court case, child's been murdered or child's been abused. The issue is for that one case, there's thousands that are going, that seriously don't make the news. Only the high profile ones make the news for whatever reason. These other kids, they're just abused, and if they don't die, then they're placed in some sort of, center for children, and then therapy and whatnot for them, and then they go into foster care, and then they're abused all over again by the foster parents. Yippee for them, you know what I mean? So the thing
one of the things that I pointed out to Aaron. I had actually said that to him. We were saying about cases, and I said only high-profile cases really make the news. Little Jimmy down the street, no one's paying attention to him. That was kind of like Anson Stover. Remember the boy close to my community that passed away? And his aunt had abused him for months. And, it was horrific abuse that he endured. It was in the newspaper one or two times. And then I haven't heard of that little boy in several years now. Jasmine and Nicole Snyder down in Lycoming County. You never hear anything more about them. And something that really makes me sick? You always hear about the abuser. You never hear about the child. It's always the abuser this, the abuser that.
That's right.
They're not getting the rights that they deserve. What about the rights of that child? The child that's either scarred for life or the child that's in the ground. We've seen so many cases over the years. People have been friends with judges. They got a slap on the wrist. People has a family member. Again, they get a slap on the wrist. What the hell is it with all the plea deals? I'm so tired of reading. Let me ask you a question. I'll just ask you this question. If you know that somebody physically or sexually abuses a child, or if you know that somebody has killed a child, why do we give them a plea deal? Why do we give them a lesser charge? A lot of people say, well, this or well, that. Well, what? Why are we giving these people plea deals? If you know that they killed that, just like Connor, I'll use Connor as an example. If you know that Ron killed Connor, Why'd we give Ron a plea deal for 5.5 years? Like, I don't understand that. People that sexually assault children, why is it mellowed down that it's like a little slap on the wrist or they get probation?
Mm-hmm.
It makes me sick to read a paper.
I think because they don't care about the children.
And
they don't care about the children at all.
No, but it makes me sick
Adults
to pick up.
Don't have relationship with children. They don't care.
See where somebody has sexually assaulted a child and then they get probation. That irritates my being. People that sell drugs, marijuana, they get more time than a child abuser, a child killer, or a child sexual abuse case. So someone selling weed
like Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah. Somebody that sells weed gets a harder prison sentence than somebody who abuses a child. Do you see how crazy that sounds?
It is, and it's because nobody gives a shit about those children.
No,
they don't.
No,
they don't. Now there are people. Now we're not saying you guys out here who are listening. We're talking lawmakers, government officials, the government itself, as a
even
whole,
like all these district attorneys and all these judges and even the lawyers. You know what I don't understand? How, we see all these cases of child abuse, child sexual abuse. I don't understand how anybody could ever be a lawyer and defend a sexual abuser of a child. I don't see how anybody could defend a child killer. I do not understand how. I'll tell you, it would be such against my morals. I could not be an attorney that specialized in that because I could not allow myself to stoop that low to represent someone who's abused or killed a child like that. I couldn't.
I think, there was a couple of cases I was watching this like last year and this year where there was somebody, I won't even name the case because we don't want to get in, it's not important. The issue is there was a defense attorney who was talking about that, and somebody was asking him why he would choose to do that instead of being a prosecuting attorney. And he was like, because until they're convicted and found guilty of the crime, they have a right to a fair trial, and somebody has to do that. I kind of do understand now why some of them people do get involved in that.
I do.
But it's hard because I would never, ever want to I would never want to represent somebody who's on trial for murder or any of these crimes. No.
When you're an attorney and you're looking at like a police report or like, and like, just like myself, I know the signs, the symptoms of sexual abuse. If I see a report from a doctor in front of me that says that this happened to this child and this child was left alone with this person, and there's so many details that go along with it. As an attorney reading this guy and him saying, I didn't do that, it was somebody else. The child was like that when they came to me, or I found them like that. You have to know that person's a lying sack of crap. I mean, you have to know that. I know everyone is innocent until found guilty. I get that. Everyone's innocent, but there's just certain people, certain cases. I can pick up a case in the newspaper and read about a missing child. I can pick up a newspaper and read about somebody being abused or sexually assaulted or whatever. Just from reading the article and having the facts, I can tell you if this person is guilty or not.
Oh,
and there's a lot of times,
you can. People aren't dumb. We're not dumb.
And
put two and two together.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is these attorneys that represent these people, I don't know. I don't think I could go home at night and look at myself in the mirror knowing that somebody that just sexually assaulted a child and killed that child just got away with it. They got probation. I don't think I could.
I wouldn't be able to do it. No, I wouldn't be able to do it. I know that because I want to be the judge throwing the book at those people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's my role. I'm like, I want to.
If I could be anything, I would be a judge. If I could have any rule in law, I would be a judge. They would be the sorriest son of a guns coming to me. They would all be like maximum sentence allowed.
Oh, seriously. Like,
my
you know,
court
because
have no plea deals. Absolutely no plea deals.
Yeah, because those people, you know, they're not going to change. They're
No.
not going to change. And they are who they are. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's sad, but that's true. And it's kind of, you know, it is what it is. I just think they have to pay. They should pay for what they've done. And I think that,
Most definitely.
um, you know, well, it's not life for life. You know, I mean, like, you know, unfortunately, because seriously, that's how I think it should. But I just think that there have been people that have been wrongly convicted. We know this.
Oh
Sadly
yeah.
enough, it does happen. Now with DNA, they can really bust people, which is great. But there has been, you know, people convicted wrongly, and that's sad.
Yes.
I always think about that because that is always unfortunate.
Me too.
I've seen
Me too.
many cases where the information came out, the person who was incarcerated for the last 40 years for this crime was not the perpetrator. And then, of course, you feel bad for that person, right?
Yeah.
So it's, you know, this is not a perfect system. It's not a perfect world, you know. The issue is there's plenty of people out there who are getting plea deals where there is total proof because there was witnesses as well as it's on camera. They've got people, they literally, we're talking, there's no possible way that this didn't happen. You know what I mean? It's like the proof is there, right? And they've got them on camera. They can literally see this perpetrator committing the crime. There shouldn't be a plea deal in that. You know what I mean? Because it's like, you've got them. You don't need to worry about doing the plea deal. I think what it is they don't really want to load the prisons because the prisons are pretty full. And they just feel like, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of like, you know, somebody gets busted for selling pot. Oh, that's a big deal. You know, you got to lock them up forever. Somebody gets busted for stealing a car. Oh man, they got to go away for 25 years. But you know, Joe Blow down here or Missy so and so killed their child. Oh, 4 years. You know, no big deal. You know what I mean? It makes me sick to my stomach. It pisses me off. Children are worth way more than some stupid ass car, and way more worth than somebody who's just selling a few bags of pot. You know what I mean? It's like, nobody gives a shit about children. And you know, I can say that, and I can just sit there and I can say it. I can say it all I want. You want to take a poll on how many people actually give a shit about children? You'll find that it's very few.
Yeah.
Very
Unless
few.
it personally affects them. Unless it personally affects them. Other than that, you don't care.
Yep.
I see the headlines.
It makes me mad.
Logan and Lexi post headlines of just about every single day. And there's like maybe 3 or 4 people that will put something on there. They'll make a comment or they'll like it or be angry or whatever. I know a lot of times they'll ask me, would you give like an opinion of what you think? And a lot of people like the opinion things, and I do that, but you still don't get a lot of people, especially if it has to do with child abuse. They're just like, whatever. If it has something to do with something else, they're all over it. When we first started doing the thing with Aaron and our interview went out where he joined us on the whole issue, it was on, I forget what format of social media. I had like 7,000 followers on that page. And I'm like, okay. And it was like a private page. I can't remember what page it is. We have several pages for AU4H. So
I know. I know you could.
I don't know. Anyway, but we had like 7,500 followers or something to that effect. And they put a clip on there and it said, anyone that had a child that thinks this is going to be an asset, please, like, heart, comment, whatever. We literally had 7 people out of 7,500. So I remember seeing that. And I said to Logan, I says, do me a favor. And she goes, what? I said, when you post again, could you make some kind of a smart ass comment? And that's exactly how I said it. That says, I have 7,500 followers, but only 7 of these people must have children or care about children.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that.
All these people are coming back and they're making comments and they're like, I didn't see your post. We love children. And it's like, no, you didn't. You saw it and you didn't comment because you can see everybody who sees it. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
you can see who sees it. So I'm like, no, I know you saw it. Especially when you're in a private group like that, it's like, no, I see who saw it. So you're full of
That's
shit.
right.
But people
so sad.
They'll lie to you. They'll tell you what they think you want to hear. I don't know. I get frustrated because I think the children are our future. We got to protect them.
They are.
If it was someone's child, they would be going crazy. But because it's not their child, I don't care, or I don't want involved, or I don't want to hear the drama. But let it be your child. Let it be your niece, nephew, your own baby. You're going to have a shit fit because you're going to justice for that baby. But because it's somebody's child that doesn't belong to you, I don't care. I don't have time. Even signing petitions. We would be going door to door with petitions, and we would say, would you just take 20 seconds and sign your name? I mean, you get the door shut in your face. You'd have people saying, I don't believe in that shit. You know, you're picking on people. People's allowed to treat their kids the way they want. Or the most famous one I got was, it's my effing kid and I'll do whatever the F I want, and you ain't going to tell me that I effing can't.
That's it.
That was the biggest response.
That was my parents' attitude.
That was the biggest response I got from people. It's my effing kid. I'll do whatever I want.
Yeah, and that's pathetic, man. It's just like, I'm sorry. You know, that's, yeah, okay. But just remember, you're going to have to answer to God. So just remember. As a parent, I mean, people.
This one guy, he was short. I'm tall. I'm 5'8". He was short, little short, maybe 5'4" guy, probably like Lee's size. I'm gonna say he weighed 100 pounds soaking wet, if that. And he acted just like he was this big badass guy and he was gonna kick ass. And I'm thinking, oh my God, you know how many men would kick your ass? And I'm a lady and I could probably kick your ass. He was so like rude and ignorant, and the way he talked about his own children was disgusting. But he thought he was like this big tough man, and it's like, no, you're actually pathetic, number one, and you're a little shithead. Like, you have that belt in your hand, and the only way you're controlling your children is because you have a belt in your hand and they're afraid they're going to get their asses. And I don't mean discipline, I mean beat. But
no, that's right.
Honest, I can see that guy to this day, and when I think of him, I just want to haul off and give him a punch.
I know, and we're like nonviolent people, but the thing is like that's what that rage does. It's like it just pisses me off because when there's no excuse for that. There's not.
There's them poor little kids, and he has this belt, and he's going like just snapping it and smacking it in his hand. And it's like, you little puke. Like I said, and I'm not violent, but I literally thought to myself, I would like to kick your ass, or I would like to.
I know. I wanted to be a police officer, like I wanted to be a cop, and I wanted to go bust people, because just from the way that I grew up, I would have loved to be a cop and bust people. Yeah.
You would have made a great officer.
Yeah, I wouldn't have picked on the people that didn't need to be picked on. You know what I mean? Like, I would have been going after the bad people, definitely. So it's too bad because I wanted to be in the service. So because there's so many pathetic thugs out there who need to be taken down. They really
support the blue. Yeah. We always say we support the blue, and we do.
Yeah, absolutely. I do. Absolutely. Because who are you going to call when you need help? So many people that are always like running down the forces, whether it's the police department or, there's good people and bad people in everything. There's good cops, there's bad cops. Thing is who are you going to call when you really need help?
We have a lot. Of course,
you're going to dial 911.
We have a lot of people with ambulance and like rescue and that kind of thing. And you'll have people, and especially like firemen, and they will disrespect them. And I think, you have an emergency and you call them, but you'll disrespect them because you don't need them right now. Or the local fire companies, every, like, whether it's a township in this area, I'll say it like that. Every township or every borough, like, they have their own little fire department, and most of them are volunteers. Right. And
I know
people just, like, run them down, and I'm just like, if your house is burning down, you're going to want them to help you. So why are you running them down lower than? I don't understand you people.
I think people are, I mean, that's why I sadly enough, I always blurt out what I'm thinking. And I just think there's a lot of ignorant people out there. I just call them ignoramuses because there is, it's like, one time I was riding, and this was when I was in high school, and I'll never forget this. It really bothered me because I was riding the bus, and it was a city bus, and there wasn't very many people on that bus, but there was a woman with a small little, maybe 3-4-year-old child. And she was pointing out at this police car that was kind of riding with the bus on, down just right next to us. And she was saying, that those saying derogatory things like those pigs or whatever, those are police. They're no good. You have to you have to hate them and all this stuff. But this little girl doesn't know anything about what's going on. No. And I thought, here's this woman probably strung out on drugs or alcohol or something, who's probably just maybe got a record or something and doesn't like cops, sitting there trying to teach her daughter that she needs to totally hate the police officers. And I was only about 15 years old or whatever. I was taking the city bus home. And I was like, that's just wrong. I'm like, I didn't say anything because at that point, I was pretty shut down. I didn't say anything to her. But I was just thinking in my mind, I thought, when you need help because somebody's coming and going to do you some harm, who are you going to call? You're going to want to call, and you want to hope you have a good cop coming to your rescue. I have total respect for the police departments and the fire department and paramedics and all of that stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I had a friend, and I will say we're not friends anymore, but at this point she was a friend, and she used to tell her son all the time, you better behave or the cops are going to get you. You better behave or the cops are going to get you. Well, he was in need. He was lost. He was in need. He wouldn't go to the, he saw a cop, but he wouldn't go to the cop because he was scared to death to go to him because she scared him. And after that happened, I was like, I can't even look at you. I don't even want anything to do with you. I'm still very close with her son. I don't want nothing to do with her. She scared that little boy so bad that he was in need. He was lost. And she had him so scared that they were going to take him that he wouldn't even approach an officer. Thank God a good Samaritan found him and took him to safety. When the cops showed up to attempt to take him home, he flipped right out because he thought they were going to hurt him. I said, you don't scare your kids at the police. You teach your kids that the police are there to help them.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, for the most part, there are bad cops. We know this. I mean, we see the stuff in the papers. There's bad people in everything. There's bad people in government. There's bad people. There's bad teachers. There's just bad people everywhere. But the thing is there's also good cops.
Look at us, though. We've known people that come out and said, I'm an advocate. I'm against violence. And then they themselves was an abuser. There's one particular person, I won't say the name, but you and I both know him. And look what he did to a domestic violence victim. You know, and that's not cool. That's not cool at all. No. So it's disgusting. No.
It is, and that's the issue, right? There's bad people in everything.
Power to hurt others. You don't use your position or your power to hurt other people. That's sad. That's pathetic if you think about it.
It is. And I mean, that's why when they do bust those police officers that have gone bad, it's great because they need to get them off the streets, because they do a lot of damage. But the thing is not every cop is your enemy. No. And I really do respect the police force. I really do. Because I know if I need something, I'm going to dial 911. I'm going to hope a good cop is going to come. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And yeah, I just think people's attitudes need to change. I really do.
I've met a lot of good officers, and they were always kind and respectful and very helpful. I can name 3 right off the top of my head. It doesn't matter where I'm at. All I have to do is text them, and they're right there. So, no, there's a lot of good. There's a lot of good cops. There's a lot of good, like I said, rescue workers, firemen. People just. I don't know that. I almost feel like some people don't have any respect for others. And sometimes I wonder if they have respect for themselves. That's why they can't treat other people decently.
No, that's the thing. And I think that there are lots of people like that they don't respect authority because they don't like the fact that somebody has authority over them. But the thing is that it's in the world that we live in, it's necessary, unfortunately. Because there's always some a-hole who's going to come along and like try to either kill you, kill your family, do something terrible to you, probably maybe burn your house down, steal your stuff, whatever. There's always some thug out there. So see, if this world wasn't full of crime and we could police ourselves by behaving ourselves as a world population, we wouldn't need these police officers.
No.
But since people are so screwed up that they can't just mind their own business and stop doing whatever they're doing to cause these problems, we got to have the police around. Think about the world without the police force, I mean, what a mess that would be, right? So we need those people. But we've got a couple minutes left, but I just, I appreciate everybody who's tuning in to the show. I just want to say thank you for watching. If you are new and this is the first time you're checking out our show, we hope that you'll be back and join us for another one. This was a special show because we wanted to just give Donna a big shout out for her 30 years in advocacy, because it is a big deal, and I'll probably be talking about it for a long time. But because I'm so proud of you, I really am. And yeah, I am. I think it's very special. The work that you've done, it stands, it does, it means something. It made a difference. And seriously, I know you're not done really, because you're still going to do other things. You know what I mean? But I think it's a great milestone. You know what I mean? Like 30 years. And so kudos to you, Donna. Wonderful work you did. You're really my hero on the earth. I don't have a whole lot of heroes, but you really are it. And well, I've just watched what you do for others, and I watch what you do for me and other people, and you're just a wonderful person, with a big heart. And so, thanks everybody for tuning in. And next week we are going to have on a very special guest again, Zaid Garcia, and he is the burn survivor, the miracle burn survivor. And because his show got cut off the last time, we had him on an interview, and it was really great, and we were having a wonderful time. And then all of a sudden, I think my internet it just crapped out, so I lost everybody. It was like it was sad.
Yours did. It just shut us completely right down.
It was awful, yeah. And he was talking about his story and telling about his story, and I told him, I said, we got to have you back on. And so he's agreed to come, but he's very happy about it. He's like, I would love to come back on your show, even though it's women like me and he's a guy. He said, I wouldn't mind coming back on as a guest, but he's such a nice guy. He's like 22 years old, and he's got a heart of gold, and he's fun and he's interesting, but his story is amazing. It's very powerful. So he's going to come join us next week on the 16th. So we'll have that show page information up there for you. But if you take a look below, if you haven't checked out our description, because we got all kinds of info there about the documentary that we just did, Voices for the Voiceless, 30-year advocacy documentary, which was really commemorating. It sort of coincided with Donna's 30-year anniversary, and that's why I wanted to put them. I basically wanted it to be at the same time, because to me it seemed proper, right? Because the documentary originally was Donna's idea, but this is going back, I mean, a long way back. I mean, we've been working on that for a while. So it just seemed fitting to have it on the anniversary date, which was yesterday on April 8th. So be sure and check that out. The link there is in the description. And come back and see us next week. Share this out with everybody. Hit the like button if you like it. Give it a thumbs up. Yeah, and thank you, Donna. I hope you have a great night.
I really appreciate you having me on, kind of as like a guest tonight to do this. This just meant the world to me. I really didn't have any big plans like to celebrate or anything. And when you suggested this, I was like, oh my goodness, I love this. Thank you. It's a great gift and I'm honored.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know what, to be honest with you, you're the gift. You're the gift. And you're the gift in my life. You're the gift in so many people's life. I'm serious. And, you know, you deserve this and a whole lot more, but at least more people will be able to hear about your story and how you and what you've done and what you're still doing, and that they can support you. They can support your work. They can buy your books. They can share your websites. So everybody check the links below and seriously share us out. We're a new channel and we've been around a long time, as you can tell. But we've been talking publicly online for 20 years. But the thing is like, this is a new channel. So we are trying to get it going. So share it out, you know, see what people somebody out there, you know, we'll find our tribe. So have a great night, everybody. We'll talk to you later, boo.
Good night, everyone. Thanks,
have a good night. See you next week. Actually, I'll talk to you sooner than that, but see you guys next week. Bye.